We're good.
Good morning, it is now 10 o'clock, and I will call the Sewer and Water Board Audit Committee meeting to order. Special counsel, please call the roll.
Director Cole. Here. Director Anthrop. Director Greenwich.
Here.
Director Hughes. Director Woodford. Judges, not have a call.
Okay, we're going to continue on for the informational items and defer the action items to the board meeting next week. And we'll now proceed with one presentation item. Mr. Ed Sutherland is going to present our first quarter audit department update.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to present today. Primary two things we have today to present the results of the service connections and inspections audit, which is fairly lengthy but shouldn't take too long. But we also have the audit plan, which I know cannot be voted on for resolution today, but I'm happy to present the plan itself and go through the issues. There we go. So the service connections and inspections audit, just some background here. We issued the report December 8th, 2025. Management response to all findings have been received. All have been agreed to by management, predominantly GSO, but some for Chief Customer Service, as well as CIO as well. And we'll get into the details of those in just a bit. The review objective was to evaluate the adequacy and effectiveness of any internal controls surrounding customers' connections to our municipal system. And the scope is any current enforced controls and associated efforts to implement and or perform them between 8/1/23 and 7/31/24. And just a note on the volume here, during that time period, we had 30,924 work orders that were put into RJN Castworks. Let's make sure we get the name tags right, of course. Sorry. And 331 were coded as being construction or inspection. That's 7,300, that's work 7,300 within that subset. So just give us an idea of the volume coming through. We had 9 findings overall. Policy procedures for service cut inspections. I'll go through these in detail, of course, in just a bit. Application intake, contractor admin fees, the account creation chronology itself, work order production system, SWIPNO permitting, utility contractor licensing, construction QA/QC, and lastly, shared mailbox access and usage. The first finding were P&P, policies and procedures for service cut inspections. Utility does not really have formal policies and procedures in place directing the involved departments through service cuts and inspections. And right there in the recommendation, I kind of bullet pointed some. This is in more detail in the report itself. But basically things that are directing us all the way through from beginning to end, right? So the packet comes into engineering. From there moves to house connections. From there, house connections collects the fees from the UC, utility contractor, the UC. From there, they move to inspection beginning. And that starts as construction happens, inspection moves, then it moves to the meter shop, and then the account is created, and thus we have a new system. So something that high level just walks us through all of that, first of all. Second would be rotations for inspectors. So we looked at how many, you would think is only a handful of UCs that do this kind of work. There's 1,481 within LSLBC's system that can do this work. 76 of those are in the city of New Orleans. So there are some choices out there. But we do have, some repeat work, right, that come through for these. We want to avoid the UCs developing relationships with the inspectors whenever they can, right? So if they develop familiarity with them, the risk of their objectivity being impaired goes up, right? So we'd like to have that formalized within P&P. Customer interaction, we'd like to see something formalized along that. Aside from community involvement, things like that, people in engineering really shouldn't be talking to customers too often, right? If at all, right? Let's leave that to the people that are trained to do so, and that's specifically customer service. So this should be outlined here, and not just, like I said, things that we should be doing, but things that we shouldn't be doing, right? Effectively establishing kind of a front office and back office for the utility. And lastly, it's just special category work orders, and this is not necessarily a bad thing. I would just like to see them kind of outlined. So 2 examples I gave in the report were pickup work orders. We just happened to notice work orders that were closed before they began. Like the close date was one date, and then the beginning date was prior. And we kind of peeled back the onion on those, and they said, oh, well, it happens if somebody's out in the field fixing something and they notice something else, they'll just do it on the spot. And then they'll come back and put the work order in post. And that's great, right? We want to be efficient. Let's just define that and define what that is so we don't see a data aberration within the system, right? And the second one I gave was good jobs. So the good jobs is kind of the colloquialism that they give when the utility is responsible for paying for the connection. There's a law in the books. We've talked about it legal a bit. I'm trying to understand it a little bit myself, but any lot that existed prior to 1954, my understanding is that, once indoor plumbing kind of became pervasive within the city, that everyone should have access to water, right? So we are owed them one connection for any lot that existed prior to that date. So they just call them good jobs within the system. They'll mark it in the problem details. So it'd be good to have that formalized. We had to kind of figure that out and peel back the onion. So let's just write down the processes for those. All that should be outlined in P&P for service connections. Second issue is application intake. We noted some documentation required for service cuts was found to be either incomplete or non-existent. It's basically four things that have to come into engineering. You need the service cut application, you need your plan drawings, which you plan to do, the contractor's license, and then evidence of insurance of the contractor, right? So there weren't a lot of aberrations to this. We tested, I believe, 25. Yeah, it was 25. We found 2 that we couldn't find the packets at all. So the recommendation for this is let's retain redundant copies of the packets, one in engineering, and then when they send the application to House Connections, have House Connections get the full packet as well, right? It's all soft copies. Let's retain redundant copies of the packets. And some of these, by the way, higher level, might be able to remove once we move to one stop. Some parts of this process, talking with Stephen Yang, will be moved to one stop at some point. But as an interim, let's retain 2 copies, right? And that was agreed to, of course, by management. The second one, 2B, service connections are not recorded in an intake log. This is kind of an easy one. Just write them down. Have an intake, have them come through. Generally speaking, they're doing them as they come in. They're FIFO, first in, first out. We know some getting finished as they come in. But it'd be nice to be able to do some benchmarking on how long it's taking. And then ones that are just not complete that we can follow up on, right? And it's just a simple like Excel log or something, right? 2C, thirdly, publicly promulgated directives regarding service connections. It just needs some updates and revision. We have a portion of our websites that dedicated to this that tells UCs where to go and customers where to go when they have a new connection. But they just need a little bit of updating. Some of the forms are outdated. And some of the directives actually state that the UC should come into the building still. We'd like to try and cut that down if we can. Just from talking to people, anybody coming above the first floor in St. Joe should probably be, looked at to be, let's get that to as close to 0 as we can. Our customers come into customer service, and that's what it's there for. But contractors coming up to House Connections or plumbers coming up to the plumbing department, we'd like to cut that down. So just remove those requirements for UCs to have to come in person. And the last thing, I think our standard drawings should be posted online. So contractors and engineers can go and look and see, okay, what are the standards that we have? So when I do my plan drawings, we can, compare it there. I know it's a huge PDF, but I think Steve can get it up there. Third, contractor admin fees. This kind of goes along with what I said earlier. Scribner gets a 20% cost of the total construction cost. That's the admin fee. So right now they're required to come in and bring a check for that, but we have a cashiering department. The UC should come in and just bring it to cashiers like customers do, right? Rather than coming up to House Connections. That was agreed to by customer service as well as GSO. Number 4 is account creation chronology. Kind of how I said earlier, things come in through engineering, flow through House Connections, go through inspections. A meter is dropped from Kenny down there in the meter shop. And then the last step of the process is account creation. We'd like to the recommendation is to invert those last two steps, right? Right now, Kenny, his big control is, I don't do anything until I get a work order, right? And that's fine, it's great. But the problem is that you have a fully pressurized water system without an account being created. So if we flip that and say, I don't drop a meter unless an account is there, right? Then we make sure we don't have any apparent water loss, right? The way it is now, the meter gets installed and you have a system and you're sort of relied upon the customer to be a good Samaritan and call in and set up their account. It's resulted in some water losses. I'm pretty confident of it. So the good news is that just flipping those last two steps should cut a lot. You could, create the account at the very beginning. I think that might wreak a little too much havoc on our process though right now. So if we just, require account creation before meter drop, I think that will cut a lot of the risk on this. And they were agreed to, of course, by customer service as well. Where are we at now? Okay, the work order production system. Everyone's pretty well versed in the limitations of CastWorks, which is why it's being replaced. Some of the things that we found were known. Some of them were somewhat unknown. The good news is almost all of them will be addressed day one with the new system with CityWorks. The operator field, you have the ability to assign things to other people without their knowledge, meaning like, CA and I can assign things to kick back to the House Connections group. House Connections can assign things to the meter shop. There's no role segregation within the departments, right? The main role security within CashWorks right now is write versus read. That's really it. RJN, just for folks listening at home, initially was rolled out in 1978. The version we're using now is from 1991. So we're aware, Darryl was very aware of the limitations. He's agreed to both of these, by the way. So 5A, CityWorks is the plan. It is coming. Implementation is set to begin, I believe, this coming quarter, Q2. And the go live, I believe, is expected in 2028. So that's very exciting. 5B, in the interim, let's cut that risk down, right? We found a lot of users that either just don't need CashWorks or some that had write access when they really only needed read. We kind of did a deep dive on this. There's 684 edit accounts. We're going to cut it down to about 213 or so. There's some grumblings amongst the folks, but they'll get used to it, right? I mean, as we ride this thing off into the sunset, we need to bring the edit access to the system down to an absolute minimum. Of course, without impeding any work order production system. But I believe Kathy already got that done, our IT director, so I'm happy with that. Number 6 is permitting. We're working in the streets all the time, the utility is, as you know, but I couldn't tell that we had a permit. Not that we need to go through the process to get a permit every time we need to get work done, but DPW does have an ordinance for a blanket permit. And it does mention that a government utility should have that as well. So the requirement is to get with Steve Nelson and get that in place. Let's just be on the grid with that so we can do our work within compliance. Number 7 is utility contractor licensing. We found, this is kind of a minor testing issue, we found 2 of the 25 were missing from the packet. But when we looked them up online on LSLBC's registry, they were there and they were active. So that's good. Probably just a processing hiccup. The recommendation here is the same thing that we recommended to the plumbing department, right? LSLBC is the issuing agency and their online registry is the system of record. So every time we have a new cut, let's just go look at their registry and do a control print of that and put that in the file. And then even if someone has the nice fancy certificate, it could have been revoked in the interim, right? Things like that. So theirs is real time, and if theirs is not real time, then we got problems. So the recommendation, like I said, the same thing we do for the plumbing board of Louisiana for the plumbers. Go to their registry, print that out, and put it in the file and move on. And those were agreed to, of course, which is great. Number 8, construction quality assurance, quality control. We found, these are minor aberrations also. 2 of the 25 tap sheets we looked at had the wrong inspector listed. And 7 of the 25 project reports were missing. Reports are what the inspector fills out as they're going through it, right? So just be better at retaining those. And, this probably kind of dovetails with the P&P. What should be in there? What kind of contractor milestones should be in those reports? What types of pictures they should be taking, and hopefully the pictures are time-stamped, right? We have that capability. So let's start doing that. And Steve was receptive to that as well. 8B, the final inspection reports do not require management review or sign-off. We'd like to see that. Just before work order creation goes to the meter shop, just have someone in management sign off on those, just to acknowledge that, again, we're not trying to duplicate the inspection. We're not going to be redundant with that. Just note that the things that were included in the inspection are all there from a documentation standpoint before moving on to meter drop, right? And of course, we agree to that as well. And the last is shared mailbox access and usage. There's a number of, and this is, of the ones we have, I would say this is a relatively minor issue, and a lot of the risk for these will move away once we move to these pieces that are planning to move to one-stop do so. But right now, they're using shared mailboxes to move things around, like permits at swimnode.org, map requests at swimnode.org, and a lot of records at swimnode.org. Some of these are used to move packets around or work order queuing between departments, things like that. It was just the access had gotten too large. They culled them down pretty quickly once we brought to their attention. So the recommendation is just look at those quarterly. And my understanding is they're going to keep these and kind of repurpose them as One Stop gets integrated into this. But the risk here is relative to IT, right? So if people have inordinate access to the system or have inordinate access to these shared mailboxes, then it presents a risk. So, we either just divest the usage of those overall or cut down to the bare minimum of what we need it to be used for. And that was agreed to. Those were all the issues for this report. This was, just a note, this was the longest report we've done, both in terms of the sheer length of the report and the issues identified. But I thought it was worth it. I thought a lot of positive things can come out of this. So I appreciate management working with us during the entire time, and there was a lot of folks involved, including, like I said, from GSO, CCSO, as well as Darryl, our new CIO. I appreciate everyone's work through the process. As far as the ongoing efforts of the departments we have right now, staffing is a top priority. One of my staffers moved to a different department, took promotion, which is great. Never want to say it's a bad thing, but that kind of leaves me kind of bare. I'm working with a recruiter now, so this is the first time I'm doing that, and it's been good so far. We had a good interview yesterday, and have another one scheduled today. So hopefully this will bear some fruit, and we'll get going. But it's a big priority for the department right now. I included rollout of the new technology. It was covered during Oracle's rollout the last session. We have CityWorks is coming, and as well as a replacement, which is Dayforce for human resources as well. Hopefully, I'm going to attend a lot of those meetings as I can, just to get an idea of what kind of control it can provide and what controls it can't. Meaning, what will have to be made up by management as far as manually, right? Hopefully, a lot of things will be able to be addressed from the IT perspective, and we can pick up the rest. And the other two things I have in the pocket right now, vehicles renting, leasing review, planning is complete. I'm going to begin testing. I made sure that my prior staff member finished up the planning process before he left, and he did. And then Act 393, no issues identified yet, and I'm probably going to roll, I can't see my report not forthcoming soon, certainly before Q2 meeting. So that's where I have in the hopper, but like I said, staffing is top priority right now. Giving all these things, this is what I'm proposing for 2026. The first bullet is something I put on here because it's just, it goes without saying that we've had a fair amount of turnover. At the executive level, we have our third GSO in 3 years. And as Gray noted in the prior session, the Chief Customer Service is leaving the utility as well. That'll be our third CCSO in also 3 years. So the primary thing is letting them know what this process is, what's expected of them, what I give to the committee members in the interim, that we give them copies of the reports, copies of their responses. So be candid, but just know that it will go to the committee, right? These types of things. To be fair, I didn't do that when I started. The directive to me was kind of like from the audit committee was, let's get rolling, like get some reports going. So we didn't do a formal training for the executive staff. Gray is used to responding to audits, right? But, you know, I kind of had to sit Steve down and say, you have to accept or decline, those kinds of things. So I think everyone could benefit from that, including me. The second thing I put as response succession, it's along the same things, but we've done 7 pretty large assurance reviews, resulting in 54 recommendations across the utility. So I just want to make sure they made it to the right place with this turnover. It doesn't make sense for us to go back and do these follow-up reviews if people don't understand what the expectations are within the individual departments underneath the executive leads. I just want to make sure that communication is made to them before, I think that's fair to them to make sure that they understood what's expected as far as what has been agreed to by a prior executive staff member. But as far as the reviews themselves, we committed this year that we're going to begin the follow-up reviews. Warehousing will be first. We did that a few years back. When did I actually do it? About 18 months ago. We've had some issues with theft at the warehouse this past fall. So this is why this kind of kicked up to the top of the list for me. That will be first on my list. Third, time clocks. This was a recommendation that came out of the overtime review for us to use time clocks. It was agreed to by management at the time, and thanks to Darrell again for pushing this through, but we're finally rolling this out. It's coming to fruition. Networks is going to be first. There's 9 devices installed at Central Yard, and the software to support them is there. They're going through testing for one of the zones right now. Once we get comfort that is being captured appropriately, we'll give Caitlin some time to roll out a directive that this is now required. I'll give that some time for folks to start recording it. And then we'll go back and check and see, I would say 6 to 8 weeks later after the directive is given to see, I'll do a reconciliation between GPHR data and the data recorded by the time clocks to see if there are any huge aberrations, right? This will result in a report that I will present to the committee. And last, if we have time for it, I put the meter shop on here. During the SC&I review, just a couple of aberrations I noted. We did a tracing and vouching exercise to make sure that we had support for each step. And some of the hard copy work orders, he wasn't able to come up with them, really readily. Maybe some manual parts of the process that could be automated as well. Also noted that sometimes we issue meters to contractors. So that kind of gave me pause a little bit. I don't know if it's an issue, but we'll like to check it out. And lastly, the gentleman that runs the meter shop is on drop. He's been with the utility 30 years. So I would like to get, just from an institutional knowledge continuity standpoint, his mind on paper in the form of planning documents, flow charts, and narratives, those kinds of things, while he's still here. We have passed substantial completion for smart metering, so I think as we, set sunset on mechanical meters, I think we don't want to lose his knowledge. So that's the last reason for including that. And those are my prepared comments. I'll be happy to take any questions or any comments that anybody might have.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So when you were discussing about flipping those last 2 steps with the account creation, and this was of the 23-24 period that you were looking at, does smart metering have anything to do, or like will it enhance or whatever, when you're talking about the meter dropping before the account creation? Like, is there any impacts with the smart metering, or if they had an old meter, like, I know we're replacing them all, but how's that gonna go?
Well, I guess the risk, it's a great question. The risk would be lower as we move to smart meters because we could see the usage remotely,
Right.
right? Without an account being created. But you'd still have to do some kind of back-end reconciliation,
And that just
right?
makes- right.
Of, are there any usage for anything that's not, that's not in the system, right? Let's make sure it's in the system before the device goes in. That's a great question, but the risk would be lower with smart metering would be my initial thought.
Okay, and then the pickup orders, because I know, and you already kind of highlighted, you want to continue like the ease of access because we want to just make it efficient.
Sure.
If they see something, do something. I'm not sure of like if they have mobile phones or anything, like, is there any way they can do that, like right before they do it? Like, oh, I see something, can I enter it in like as a work order, since we have this new system? Just, is there room for that, you think? So that way we're not just.
My feeling is that, like this is more of an IT question, but hopefully the sky's the limit with the new system. Now the question is, will networks or tech services and things like that have laptops in the field? I don't think so.
I think my understanding, and then this is the implementation, right, it still has to begin, is that there will be mobile applications, right?
Okay.
So mobile ability from a variety of devices. So yeah, we have to work through those technology access things, but I believe that the new system is capable of doing that, certainly.
Okay, and then just the last thing, time clocks. Who's the vendor that was used, or is it just a generic time clock?
Oh, it's a good question. I'll have to look it up, I don't know.
And if so, just wondering if there's room for, like the integration for when Dayforce comes for the HCM, will that then feed into the HCM part, or is it gonna feed into like wherever the payroll system is housed? And I don't know if that's like in the financial system, like who? Like,
Yes.
we have the time clocks, but then further down, who
Yes.
is it gonna go to? Because that'll help with reporting, and then I just didn't know if the time clocks were actual, like on the wall, or if there was geofencing capabilities again. I'm just trying to think of,
Yes.
how we can get it a little bit more efficient.
Brought up a lot of things, and I'll hit as much as I can. Okay, so what the work I'm gonna be doing is, in the interim, we have GPHR, Great Plains Human Resources, in place before the new system. So that'll have to be a manual data match by me. Ideally, long-term, yes, it's a biometric time clock.
Okay.
So it's not a punch clock.
Okay.
It's a biometric time clock with your fingerprint. So the capability, hopefully, will be that you do that, you won't even have to do a timesheet anymore for the ones that, the non-exempt employees that we decide for that to be the case, right? So you log in and your timesheet's populated, and that's it, right? So long-term, that is the long-term planning solution.
Okay.
In the interim, we want to get some manual controls around this, right? It's a system that's coming. In my opinion, I don't think we can wait. We're going to do as much manual work on the front end as we can.
Okay.
So,
And then, I'm sorry, one that just popped up,
Go
because
ahead.
my HR had, we did have them sign like an attestation, or is there an attestation on the time clock about biometric screening?
that's a good question. I'll ask Darryl.
Just because I think about legal stuff, sorry.
From a privacy standpoint, right?
Yeah, like, you just want them to attest that it's okay to capture their bio, even though it doesn't like house it, some people just can get
Privacy on fingerprints.
awkward about
Yep.
it, so.
Absolutely. I sent you all the slides. By the way, welcome to Audit Committee. Very much appreciate you being here. I sent you the slides in advance. Is that, I don't know, but is that something you appreciate?
Yes.
I'll do that moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you want to see any of this information presented any differently, these other gentlemen know this, that have been on the committee for a while, but you just let me know. I'm happy to do whatever you ask. So, thank you for your input.
I just had a couple of questions. So as I understand it now, our permitting process is, we don't really have a system for that. Spreadsheets and files in a system, or are we transitioning from one system to one stop?
So, yeah, we don't permit. Okay, so as far as those permitting for doing cuts,
Yeah.
We don't have a permit right now. We need to get that blanket permit, at least at the time.
Yeah, I'm talking about the service connections, the meter process.
Right, so when a UC files for a permit, they do it through One Stop. That part is definitely, is in all permitting through safety and permits, it still goes through safety and permits, the street cutting. So yes, that part is in One Stop. What Stephen had been, and I had talked about was he was considering moving some, so they don't have to keep doing the packets. They might be able to integrate some of the things like their plan drawings and things like that, that'll go into One Stop, and you'll see it in the PDF of the, behind the permit, if you will. So if they can, so UCs are definitely going through One Stop. You have to, there's no choice anymore. But some of their efficiencies that they're looking to achieve would move some of these manual pieces, manual documentation pieces to One Stop.
Yeah, because when you apply for a permit, you have to upload all your drawings or whatever, and if you're missing something, they'll let you know.
Right.
So that would be, sounds like a pretty easy fix right there, since they're already doing it.
Yep.
And then the other piece would be maybe, you mentioned the cashier. I mean, you can pay permits online through One Stop, is that?
That's correct too. That's another thing that we mentioned. We should try to push that to One Stop as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's been updated to pay through One Stop, through House Connection.
The UCs are doing that now? Okay.
Late, May of '25, so a little bit after the data you were looking at. But as of last May, that was a change.
Well, they were still, I don't
You
know.
can pay it that way, but do you have to pay it that way?
I think that's the intent, is that this is the only mechanism, and if there was some type of like transition period where they did it the old way and this way, you know, we need to check on that and make sure we're sort of like doing it the one way that's
Yeah.
intended, right?
If we're no longer taking admin fees in person, fantastic. I don't know when that became the case.
That's all I have. Oh, yes, Director Thomas is in the room, present. Make that for the record. All right, we cannot take up any action items because we do not have a quorum, so our special counsel will put it on the
It'll be deferred.
full board agenda. So with that being said, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Public comments.
Oh, I'm sorry, public comments.
No public comments here.
All right. Dr. Greenridge has moved, and I guess I'll second. We are now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.